Welcome to SportsBeat KC, presented by Big O Tires. It's Tuesday, December 31st. On the final day of the 2010s, or whatever we called this decade, star columnists Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian joined me, Blair Kerkhoff, to discuss what I believe was the most common thread throughout the teams that we cover: coaching success and stability. There wasn't much turnover because mostly their teams won. Think about it. Folks like Andy Reid, Ned Yost, Peter Vermes, Bill Self, Bill Snyder, Gary Pinkel, and most were here during the entire decade. 3 of them have retired, and I wonder how long Reid, Vermes, and Self will be with their teams. After a break, Sam, Vahe, and I offer predictions for the 2020s. We talk Super Bowls, World Cup soccer, the next KU basketball coach, and the prospects for a downtown baseball stadium. I hope you enjoy the final SportsBeat KC podcast of the decade. Sam and Vahe are here, and we spent so much time talking about the big stories of this decade that we didn't have time to squeeze in some of the bigger personalities and some predictions for 2020. So we thought we would do 2020 decade. So we thought we would do that today. So what I'm going to do is run down the names of some coaching figures that made an impact on the Kansas City sports scene in the previous decade, and I want you guys, Sam and Vahe, to just give me a little thought on each of these coaches. And I hope I'm not omitting anyone, but I think we've got the some of the leaders of the pack, if you will. So let's start with this. Let's start with Peter Vermes, head coach of Sporting Kansas City, won the MLS Cup in 2013, won a couple of U.S. Open Cups, the Lamar Hunt. I don't know if they call it the cup or the trophy, but Lamar Hunt's name is on that. I would say that because he's been the head coach of his team longer than Andy Reid has been the head coach of the Chiefs, the most consistent winner among professional sports teams in Kansas City, and quite an impact on professional soccer in this town.
Transformational, I think, and not just with, the Wizards, going from the Wizards in Community America Ballpark.
Let's say starting with the Wiz.
Oh, the Wiz, yes,
and
exactly.
then the Wizards.
Yeah, players using the porta-john, like at halftime, and there's a pitching mound in the middle of the field. To just a gorgeous soccer-specific, model for the rest of the league stadium. But, he's done a lot of great work, too, at the youth level. And some of that is self-serving, right? If soccer is a big deal.
Heck yeah, it is.
In Kansas City.
Go develop players,
Yeah, yeah, you develop players. And also, if your kids are really into soccer, if the profile of soccer is lifted, that's good for Sporting Kansas City's business. There's some self-interested words there, but you made a positive impact, of getting kids involved and all that. And, look, just came off a really disappointing season, but more and more it looks like that might be a fluke. They just made a really big signing, signed the leading scorer from Liga MX, which is rare for any MLS team, let alone one that certainly hasn't been spending the way that like the LA Galaxy, for instance, or whatever. But, just an absolutely transformative, consistent presence, incredibly detail-oriented, all-encompassing leader.
He is Sporting KC as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's funny because there's some certainly other recognizable forces with Sporting KC, but is he not really still kind of the face of it in a lot of ways?
He is. Yeah, look, I think that Neil Patterson and Cliff Illig and that group deserve some of the credit. They put the money and they took a big risk. That was a big swing to with taxpayer money, right? A lot of it, but they had a vision of what soccer could be, but it's Peter that has executed that.
Yeah, and you look at things like the facility, the Pinnacle. Is that what it's called still?
Yeah.
The Pinnacle, and things like that. It's an international draw. And it could be part of, Peter's only got one role in this, but all of that could be part of something that gives Kansas City a chance to be on the map in an entirely new way with the World Cup. And it starts kind of with the vision that comes from that success that whole group has formed.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. The next coach that we're going to talk about is Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder 2 was the last decade, right? Bill Snyder 1 was the 90s and the 2000s, and then Bill Snyder retired after the 05 season, sat out for 3 years, returned in 2009, and kind of picked up where he left off.
It was amazing. I mean, I don't know if people forget about this, but I don't hear it talked about as much. The end of Bill Snyder 1 was such that there were a lot of K-State fans that was, good. Time for you to go. Time for us to update. And when he came back, I'll admit, I was skeptical, because I thought he was too old. Yeah, I was part of that, and then for him to, sort of drag. If you just look at the wins and losses under Ron Prince, it doesn't look that bad. But I think we all know that there was some infrastructure problem, and there was just some long-term stability problems that were starting to creep up and were mounting. And for him to come back and not just save it and calm the waters, as he often put it, but to push them within, was it 2 wins of the national championship game in 2012 with the Colin Klein game. They lost that game. They really got blown out. I was at that game in
Baylor,
Waco.
Right? Yep.
But they were Kansas State was 2 wins away from the national championship game, and put them back to a consistent bowl presence, and stepped away now. And I think most K-State fans would think that was about the right time. And it sure looks, and we don't know, but it sure looks like they got the replacement right this time.
I was like Sam, totally skeptical when he came back, and marveled anew that he could do that again. Right about this time a year ago, or a little bit earlier, I think we all sort of felt this way, and maybe we all wrote some version of it. But I wrote something about that I thought it was time for him to either step down or be moved out. And the reason really was you could sort of feel things diminishing and just a hiccup in the whole process. But I wanted his legacy to be what it deserved to be, and not further diminished by what seemed to me to be a downward trajectory.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad he was out after last year, not because I wished him any harm or any ill will, but I just thought need to make the change. And I think in some ways what Chris Kleiman did this year, sort of further reiterates that it was time for the change, because it wasn't like it a whole roster makeover.
Right.
Quarterback was a place where you saw a huge difference, and the same guy.
Yep.
All-time lists of greatest college football coaches, whatever it is, whatever number, Mount Rushmore or a top 10 list, probably won't include Bill Snyder. I think any list should include Bill Snyder. Even though he didn't win a national championship and he only won a couple of conference titles, what he accomplished in his tenure at Kansas State, and to do it twice, it's unparalleled. Right. It's unparalleled in college football history.
I always remember Gary Barnett. He had quite a rebuild at Northwestern, and he would always say nobody's ever done anything like Bill Snyder did. And that's well said. Yeah. By documented numbers, the worst program in college football history. Right, 1 bowl game and whatever the total wins were at the time. I mean, he just used the term transformational earlier with Peter Vermes. I'd say that it certainly applied to Bill Snyder.
Yeah, there's 2 little anecdotes that stick out about him too, and one is he told me this in a story that we did in 2012, and I asked Tim Fitzgerald, our friend at PowerCat, and he said he never heard it before, but that part of why he took the job was he interviewed for it on a snowy day in December of 89 or 88, whatever, 88. 89 was his first season, right? And part of the reason he took the job is he just started walking around campus and just asking random people about K-State and about the campus. And he said they were all nice and they were all generous, and he could feel a certain spirit. And that's part of why he took the job. And he always talked about that, the people. It's the people. He always said that, the people. I will always remember that, about Bill Snyder.
And John Weefall would always say he was the 47th choice?
Yeah. Right. Oh, and another one.
Oh, yeah, so you had another.
He said the Futility U, right? The Sports Illustrated story. The college football's worst program. And Bill Snyder said, you can do this story if you promise to come back when we fix it.
And they did come back.
Yep.
Well, I know we're talking about the decade, but Barry Switzer said he was the coach of the 20th century as far as Switzer was concerned. Yeah. Okay, next coach, Gary Pinkel. Now, I know that this is we're talking about the full decade, and Gary retired after the 2015 season, but incredible impact on Mizzou football, and walked away for health reasons, not because Missouri had a losing season in his final year, but Vahe, it was terrific to see Gary just last week at the introduction for Eli Drinkwitz.
And he looks great. And he had some more health issues earlier this year, but they were addressed promptly. And I think as long as they stay on top of things, he expects that he'll be fine. But he's very active still, and I think it was a tough way for it to end at Missouri with all the conflict going on that year. But I don't think that in any way has diminished what he meant to Missouri. He's the only guy, Dan Devine left in 1970 to go coach the Packers. So 6 of the 7 coaches since then have been fired. And Gary Pinkel, it was 5 double-digit wins in 8 years, got Missouri to a number 1 ranking. Its only victory over a number 1 program, it was the BCS number 1 Oklahoma. And the big surprise to me in the Pinkel era was in the 2010s. It was the 2 division wins in the SEC after they had a rough start in their first SEC season.
After winning 2 in the Big 12 in the previous decade. Yeah. So for Missouri to continue its success, because they were peaking pretty much as a Big 12 program when Missouri left the Big 12 for the SEC.
That was a hell of a moment. Just sort of a institutional self-esteem kind of I feel like there was a feeling of we're in the SEC, these circumstances kind of pushed us to this decision, but can we really compete with SEC schools and SEC money? And I feel like when that happened, it's like, hell yeah, it's one thing to hope or think it can happen, but now to see it in real time with your own eyes and playing for SEC titles. I think that changed certainly the trajectory of how we talk about Mizzou going to the SEC. So I think after that it was, I'm sorry, but after that it was hard for, even people that are sort of bitter about how the breakup happened. It becomes much harder to make the case that Mizzou made a mistake after that.
But it is interesting, and again, Blair and I had a long time in the car back and forth to Columbia the other day while you were trailing us.
Yeah.
But we were talking about some of these things. It is interesting that probably the bulk, at least the momentum of that team, the bulk of its recruiting probably was Big 12 based.
Yeah.
So now it's doing it within the cycle of the SEC context. Yep. It'll just be interesting to see when it takes next,
Absolutely.
Especially now with another new coach.
Yep.
All right, let's stay with the colleges. And in terms of championships won, nobody has more than Bill Self. Right?
With an insurmountable lead.
A certain mastery of the craft.
9 out of 10.
Yeah.
What do you think?
His is a little bit more complicated, right? He didn't build up the way that Bill Snyder did, but 14, I guess the streak is going to stop for now, at least at 14. That kind of sustained success in college basketball, a sport that is really kind of built for volatility in programs. And I know that Kansas has a huge advantage, like historically and with money and facilities. And it's really easy to bring a recruit in for a game and show them this energy and all that stuff. But North Carolina has those same advantages, and they've had down years. Kentucky has missed the tournament. Duke has, had some down years. So to be able to do it that consistently, I think is kind of the remarkable thing about Bill. We don't know exactly how this FBI thing is going to turn out. That's certainly going to affect his legacy, as well as like if and when he goes to the NBA and the timing of all that. But that consistency, I don't think it would be surprising if that's not matched in a major conference for the rest of our lifetimes of the conference titles.
And beyond that, they're always. We were talking on another podcast about the Royals have to choose sort of between whether they're going to be at a sort of consistent ability to compete, or they're going to have these peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. Kansas competes at a level that is at a peak. Mm-hmm. Consistently at a peak. Yeah. But only the one national title under Bill, and I think I think this team's capable of that for sure, and I think it would sort of embellish his resume in a different way to have another one.
Yeah. And again, like with the FBI stuff, the context of that,
Well, right.
that'd be for people like us, that is good hashtag content, right? and one other thing about the conference titles, it's sometimes it's not dismissed is the wrong word, but sometimes it's diminished by some with the idea of the lack of just one national title, and it's the Big 12 and not the ACC. But I've always believed this. I'm curious what you guys you've covered college sports longer than I have. That I don't think that Kansas could have won 14 straight titles in the ACC, but I also don't think that Kentucky, Duke, or North Carolina could have won 14 in the Big 12.
I like
think
that.
Both of those
I
things
like
are
that
true.
analogy. I think both are true. I don't know, Blair, if you agree, but
I agree. I think especially since the Big 12 became a 10-team league and you had to play everybody on the road in your conference. When that 14-year streak started with the division play, so there were some years where Kansas, didn't play South teams twice. And the Kevin Durant Texas team, for instance, and you only had to see them once. Some of Kelvin Sampson's great Oklahoma teams, Kansas only got to play them, see them once during the regular season. So that in the early years that made it easy. I think the impressive part of the Kansas streak is what happened after it became a 10-team league.
Only had to see Kevin Durant for a half too, right?
He played.
Did he get hurt?
He got hurt. He was hurt and played through the second half.
But he got hurt.
He did. He was
in the second half.
Had 25 in the first half at Allen Fieldhouse.
I think that is one of the most badass things I've ever, because you remember that was the time where there was kind of a big talk about, Scott Drew always took his team off the floor when they played the video, and that was like a thing. And you remember, like Kevin Durant, before that game, Rick Barnes was saying something in the huddle.
He's got the whole team in the huddle. They're all paying attention except Durant. Turned around looking at the video, kind of appreciating it. I just thought that was really cool.
Oh, that's cool. Like here's 25.
That's right. Here's what I got for you.
It's pretty sweet, man.
That was still one of the kind of the great games in Allen Fieldhouse over the decades. So, okay, let's. We never do lightning round the way we're supposed to, but that's all right.
Lightning storm.
All right. The next two coaches and the final two, we're on a first name basis with them, aren't we?
Yeah.
Ned. I mean, did we think it was going to work in 2010 when Ned became the manager?
My overwhelming feeling at that point was. I know the other guy's not going to work.
Ain't working now.
So I remember thinking that it made sense to me, like Ned was a good fit for that job. That he had been part of Atlanta, obviously, and then had been the manager when they built up in Milwaukee. And getting fired in the middle of a pennant race is something that, even with a World Series championship, is probably going to hang on Ned.
Yeah.
But I also remember talking to people involved with the Brewers at that time, and they regretted it. That was an owner-dictated decision. You're going to fire this guy, or I'm going to fire both of you. And and Ned still had the bulk of that experience. And I also believe in sort of the value of being pissed off and the value of wanting to prove people wrong. And I think that was part of it too. And look, I don't think Ned. I think the value of managers is vastly overrated. I've said that probably too many times. But I do think that he was the right guy, proved to be. I mean, how could you argue against it? But, was the right guy for that time because he had a lot of weaknesses, but he had an incredible strength of just believing in a group. And that group, I think, to overcome the Royals' more recent history, needed somebody to believe in them. And he was there for him consistently every freaking day.
He did have gaps in his game, just strategically, especially before he kind of paid attention and brought in, some new guys who we'd listen to more, right?
Before he started taking advice, basically. Yep.
Yeah, and he's a stubborn guy, but sometimes stubborn there's a fine line between that and a guy who stayed the course in the right ways. And he made a difference in that clubhouse. I think with the example I can give off the top of my head is like Moustakas gets sent down in 14. Moustakas always talked about how he left there knowing that he was loved, knowing they wanted him back, knowing this was temporary, and that Ned hugging him up. And I think I learned through some of this process that, the job is more than not just that one aspect of how you pull the levers in the game, right? Mm-hmm. It's about how you affect the team. And there was a lot of thought for a while that they won despite him. I don't think that's true. I think they won with him. I don't know that they won because of him. I mean, there's somewhere in that mix is there. And I will say also, I think we all came to feel this way. He could be kind of surly and cranky, but generally speaking, you kind of got his vibe and understood his sense of humor.
I enjoyed dealing with him. I thought he was funny.
He was funny, yeah. and he really got funny after they won that A's game, right? I mean, it was just Ned.
Yeah.
Ned
that changed him, boy.
Unfiltered after that, and
that changed him.
Funny, always funny, really. It just sometimes he had a little too much of an edge with some people.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever really bore the brunt of that. Maybe you did one time. I think you called him dumb another time.
Yeah, I had a few run-ins with Ned. Like we'd have arguments, but he was always like I felt like there was one sort of disagreement that we had that lasted a few weeks or maybe a few months or whatever. But for the most part, I think like you deal with it and then the next day it's fine. And even the longer one that we had, it's long been fine since. I'll also say this: like he is almost fundamentally stubborn. In so many ways, but he made a maybe it's subtle, but it's a very clear shift. He grew up very old school. He came from Ted Simmons. That's sort of who he grew up. That's how he learned baseball. And Ted Simmons might be just put it into the Hall of Fame, right? Might be the definition of sort of old school tough, and this is how we're going to do it. And that's how Ned had always been until he got to Kansas City. And he made a conscious, and he had to teach himself how to do this, just an effort to loosen up in the clubhouse. Yeah. And you know what? It's okay if they play music before. And it's okay if they hit a double and do hand signals to their team, like just little things. Like it's okay if our catcher makes this thing of dumping water or Gatorade or whatever on a guy in the post-game interview. And I don't think that's something that Ned would have gone for in Atlanta or Milwaukee. But I think he taught himself to accept that. And that became almost just a definition, just such an irreplaceable, just a part of who that Royals group was, that kind of swagger.
My two thoughts on Ned, you guys were terrific on this, but I don't think people realize that during a baseball season, a manager holds 4 press conferences a day.
Yeah.
Press conference is probably not the right word, but talks to the media 4 times a day.
Answers questions.
Yep. 4 times a day. Andy Reid does it, 3 times a week? Maybe 4 if you count the visiting media press conference. Ned Yost, our baseball manager, does it 4 times a day for 162 days during the regular season, not to mention exhibition baseball where he's has to do similar work. And I don't. My earliest thoughts on Ned were this man is ill-equipped for this type of duty, but he figured out. He found a rhythm and a pace for it, and I thought the longer I was out there, more often I was out there, the easier it became to communicate with him because you knew what he was about. And you knew when to laugh, you knew when to pay attention, and sometimes even go off the record with Ned. But I enjoyed that immensely. The other thing is, for managers who have participated, I think the number is 25, minimum of 25 postseason games. Ned has the all-time highest winning percentage. And I don't know, that's pretty good. Yep. He's got an under 500 record as a manager all time, but nobody
when it counts.
When it counts the most. He was great.
No one's going to be able to take that away from him either.
Yeah, he was great.
Quick aside on your point, Blair. One thing with Ned, with asking him questions, was you learn, as you do with some relationships, you just have to sustain the first blow, right?
That's a great way of putting it.
He's going to give you some kind of guff at the start, then you just kind of hang in the pocket, and then he's going to give you the real answer. And, of course, the joke we've always made is the contrast between Ned and Patrick, who answers every question starting with the word yeah, and Ned answering every question with the word no.
No.
And then giving you a good answer usually.
Yep.
I'm not going to find it. Sorry. On my phone, I have a quote from him just from this last season about being superstitious, and it was during
I know this quote.
Whit Merrifield's like hitting streak, and it was like I'm gonna stop looking for it, but it's something like, I don't believe I'm the least superstitious person that you know. Superstition is stupid. Superstition is for losers. Now I'm exaggerating to prove a point, but he's like, but you know, if somebody's got a no-hitter, I won't ever just completely in mid-sentence turn off. Like, if somebody has a no-hitter, he won't mention or look at the scoreboard because then the next thing you know, he's going to give it up. It's just beautiful, Ned. I'll miss him.
Oh, man.
Same.
All right, we just mentioned a little while ago the final kind of coaching figure of this decade that we'll spend some time on is Andy Reid. 14 years in Philadelphia, one Super Bowl. I want to say 10 playoff seasons, at 9 or 10 playoff seasons there. In Kansas City, 7 years. He will have been in the playoffs 6 times. Double-digit victory seasons in 6 of the 7 years. The one that wasn't was a 9-7 team in his second year in KC. By all measures, except a little one, a resounding success in Kansas City. And we mentioned this on a podcast earlier. How what a fortunate turn of events it was for the Chiefs organization to be able to land Andy Reid when he had other options after being, ushered out of Philly. It's been wonderful during the regular season with Andy Reid.
It has, and look, just start with the regular season from the very first one, from 2-14 to 11-5. I don't remember offhand. You might remember offhand what the greatest turnarounds regular season-wise in NFL history were, but it's hard to top that. There probably is something else.
I think the Dolphins went 1-15 one year and then went 11-5.
Yeah, something like that. So
Tony Sperano's team.
But look, but we know also, and you guys know better than I do because I wasn't here yet, but that wasn't just a 2-14 team. That was a disaster of an organization at that point. I mean, maybe not at the very top, but the very top wasn't doing enough about it at the second to top level. And so it needed to be rooted out and started over, and that's a big job. That's a big job, and they did it.
That to me,
it wasn't just a fluke. That's all. It was no fluke. It was the start of something.
Sustained, and that to me is like Andy's greatest magic trick. We talk a lot about like play design and these guys in motion and shovel passes and all that stuff.
Hungry pig left.
Yeah, hungry pig right.
Right. Sorry.
But it's. That's kind of the sizzle, but the substance is, this unshakable leader. He is so damn steady, And in 2012, there was just broken relationships everywhere, including, and I'm specifically thinking of between players and the coaches and players and the front office. Like there were players in that locker room that believed they were being purposefully misused so that the team would have an advantage in their contract negotiations. I mean, that's how little trust there was. There was, such incompetence that you had, Todd Haley kind of famously telling, was it Brian Waters? I can get guys off the street and go 2-14 because they had gone 2-14 the year before, Pioli and Haley came in. And it turns out 2-14 got them run out of town. So anyway, I'm saying all that to sort of like repaint the picture of sort of what Andy walked into, and the turnaround was immediate, and it was incredible to see, how little belief and trust they had, and then how much belief and trust they had, and it was really almost right away. And that to me, I'll just never. He can win a Super Bowl or 3 or whatever, but that to me is going to be one of his greatest accomplishments.
That team started 9-0.
Yeah.
9-0 start.
Yeah, and I remember the 9th win was in Buffalo that year.
A game they had no business winning.
Sean Smith,
they got
long interception
flatly
return
outplayed.
Yeah.
And I remember saying something like, in some question I mentioned Dwayne Bowe, that people were calling you the worst 9-0 team, in football history or whatever. And he was like, as far as I know, we're the only 9-0 team. I was like, that's a pretty good answer. That's a pretty good answer.
There's all these things, right? You mentioned a couple of them. I'll add to it Andy Reid after buys. Andy Reid against the AFC West. He's
That's
just
unreal, really.
Really, just this,
26-3 now.
with one to go, right? And it started with a loss. We say 26-3 since 2015. It started with a loss to the Broncos at Arrowhead. So
it feels sustainable too in a way that the Chiefs. This is their 5th straight postseason, right?
Correct.
And they made 6 straight in the beginning of the
90s,
the early 90s. But this feels, at least in the moment, sustainable in a way that didn't. That it felt like part of the reason that Marty Schottenheimer, part of the reason that his time as coach in Kansas City ended is I think he saw the ending coming, and that thing was just gonna crater. And if they had to hire a new coach, if Andy Reid just woke up tomorrow and said, I want to go to the beach or whatever, like the next coach would be walking into a beautiful situation of sustainability of they've got young players. I mean, and look, the quarterback is the most important thing, and he's 24 years old.
Which is what the 90s teams didn't have.
Yes. But there also seems to be a foundation of just guys in that locker room and just sort of an expectation and belief system that I think is sustainable going forward. I mean, especially right now, and look, maybe Drew Lock's going to turn into a star. Maybe John Gruden gets it going in Oakland or Las Vegas or whatever. But it's hard to imagine the Chiefs not winning the AFC West next year, and probably the year after that. The further you go, the less certain you can be. But there's just a sustainability right now that it's been a long time since the Chiefs have had that.
I think Andy Reid will be in the Hall of Fame if he doesn't win a Super Bowl. I think he's reached enough of the thresholds of number of victories, not conference, but division titles, that sort of thing, that puts him ahead of the Chuck Knoxes, Marty Schottenheimers, guys that aren't in the Hall of Fame. But Super Bowl victory would almost maybe make him a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Even if he gets in without it, that's what people say. He's a coach that got in. He didn't win a Super Bowl, but
it only got to one. Like Marv Levy's in, but he got to 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Why? This is a funny way to frame this, maybe, but what is it that should keep Andy from winning a Super Bowl? I mean, what is there? I don't believe there is a fatal flaw. I know my Philadelphia friends always will talk about there's going to be some botched time management thing. That's really a scar from a couple games. There's been other moments, but it's not really like Andy just doesn't know what the clock is. I mean, I'm sure he can work on all facets of his game, just like we can work on all facets of ours. But there's no fatal flaw here for Andy, is there?
One thing you hear this year, maybe it is specific to this year, he doesn't keep his foot on the throat of an opponent when he gets a lead in the fourth quarter. Plays a little too conservative, especially this particular team without a great running game.
Yeah, those are the two big picture criticisms, right? But and you can come up with ways this year. They got to score in the red zone. They're going to have to score touchdowns in the playoffs. And, that's part of that run game thing, right? And they struggle against the run. And, there's a team that's likely to be the number 1 seed in the AFC that can run the ball pretty well, that the Chiefs also beat earlier in the season. But, there's ways, but it does seem, not necessarily this year, not necessarily next year, but maybe on both of those. But it does seem you got that coach and you got that quarterback. And, Tyreek Hill is going to be in his prime for a while. Travis Kelce, you would think, has 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 more years of being, close to his peak. I mean, they got some studs on that team. It's a pretty good bet. If you're, in the next 5 years, I wonder what the Vegas odds would be. The Chiefs will win a Super Bowl, in the next 5 years. I would think that the odds would be high or low. The odds would be favorable for the Chiefs winning. Yeah.
Tell you what, Peter Vermes, Bill Snyder, Gary Pinkel, Bill Self, Ned Yost, Andy Reid, we all talked about them. What a decade for consistency and excellence, really, without a ton of one parade and a championship for Peter Vermes and Sporting, an AFC title game appearance for the Chiefs. But without having looked up previous decades, I don't imagine there has been that much coaching stability at the high-profile sports in Kansas City. I mean, Royals managers. Yost is the longest tenured Royals manager. Peter Vermes easily, at Sporting, Pinkel more than 10 years. Bill Snyder, the whole decade in his second term. Gosh, just we haven't had many. We all talk about how we hate coaching search stories. We haven't had many of those.
Yeah.
One other twist on the real quick is just, if I believe this is right. Was it 2014 calendar year was the first time the Royals and Chiefs had ever been? Yeah. Actually, it's 2015, right? Because didn't the Chiefs miss the playoffs Andy's second year?
That's right. In the postseason in the same year.
First time. I mean, think about that. What that says about this intersection of
in our small markedness.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my head, I feel like there was some consistency in the '90s, right?
Certainly Marty and Carl.
With Schottenheimer, Snyder, Roy
Williams. The Royals had a little bit of turnover.
Yeah, they had a lot. There was one miss right there. And Sporting basically did not exist.
Right.
In some tangible ways, but still, I think that there's probably more consistency now than there was even then.
All right, guys, good conversation, but we're not finished. We've got some predictions for you as we close out whatever we're calling this decade and welcome the 2020s. We'll be back right after this.
If your steering wheel has more traction than your actual tires, that's a big O no. Thankfully, for all your car's big O no's, there's always a big O yes. Now through February 2nd, buy 3, get 1 free on select sets of 4 Aspen Touring AS or Mesa AP2 brand tires with paid installation purchase. Big O Tires, the team you trust. Disposal fees extra and up to 10% shop fee based on non-discounted regular retail price not to exceed $35 where permitted. See store for pricing. Eligibility may vary. Not valid with other offers. At participating locations, no cash value.
Hey, it's Blair. Hey, we have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns we have to offer. And it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. For your convenience, your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. A lot of subscription services won't tell you that. They'll just sneak it on there. We just told you. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. We are back with Vahe Gregorian, Sam Mellinger, and we are going to close the book on the 20-teens with some predictions going forward. First of all, gentlemen, I'm really looking forward to being with you on this date in 2029 to see if these predictions come true for the podcast. So let's. I told you to think about them. I've got a list of about 3 or 4. So if you don't come up with the ones that I have, I'll chime in last. So let's start with you, Vahe. Give me a prediction for the 2020s. Sports in Kansas City.
Well, just to ride one of the hot points here, Chiefs will win a Super Bowl by 2024. So in the next 5 years, because we know that people in Vegas are betting they'll win one in the next 5 years.
Right? That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I believe they'll get to a Super Bowl more than I feel a sense that they'll win it. But I really believe they're Super Bowl bound in the next year or two.
One thing in your favor is, at least this year, they played the better teams in their schedule well.
Yeah.
Beating the Patriots and the Ravens, losing at home to the Colts, Texans.
And Sam's made this point as recently as last week. They're peaking, I think, in the stretch run here. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're the best they've been. And I like what they can be with all these mechanisms working. Now, it doesn't do anything for you on a snowy day in Baltimore in late January. I don't know, but I like where they are.
Yours has the first chance to come true. If it happens,
right. Yes.
It'll happen on February 2nd. The first opportunity for a 2020 prediction to come true.
Got a shot at that. Now, do you want me to step back or hit you with a couple other quick ones and then?
Let's circle the table here.
Okay.
I agree with that, and I would add that Patrick Mahomes will win 2 MVPs in this decade.
Okay, to go with the one that he already has.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine will be, this city will be in fuego in 2026 when the World Cup arrives. Yeah. And this will be, the Kansas City will be the smallest market to get a World Cup event, and we will revel in it. And it'll be a joyous occasion, and I'm really looking forward to it. Fingers crossed that Kansas City gets this. I understand 2020 is the first time they would know that they. I think that they're a finalist. Kansas City's a finalist, and 2020 is summer. 2020 is supposed to be the year that the North American final cities are announced. Okay, you get another one, Vahe?
Well, by 2029, Bill Self will no longer be the coach at Kansas. And what we don't know is whoever's successor is, does he have the ability to keep his foot on the gas? I mean, this era in Kansas basketball, I know it's been a little short on national titles, right? You'd like to see a couple more. But from Roy to Bill Self, I don't know what the just overall win percentage is, but it's got to be the highest in college basketball.
Well, if you throw in Larry Brown, so the 5 years of Larry Brown,
And Larry, of course,
15 of Roy and 17 of Bill Self, it is. It's that 37, I think that's 37 years. It's the highest winning percentage, higher than Duke or Kentucky or
Probably actually by a
Gonzaga.
fair amount. Because
I don't know about a fair amount.
Maybe
but
Duke hasn't had too many down years, but Duke has had some lesser years.
only 2 NCAA titles in that.
But only
so.
2, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So no real prediction other than it won't be Bill by 2029. That's a little bit in the safety zone here, right? There's a lot of reasons why it might not be him by then.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to see, whatever that day comes, who is next. Also, where Bill goes, unless he just goes to retirement.
Can I throw a prediction on a prediction?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that'll happen sooner than 2029. Maybe by 2020. There's 2024 over under for things now.
Wow.
I just feel like he's wanted to go to the NBA, and I think that he just seems like a guy that's going to want to try that. And I don't know tangibly like anything, but he just seems like he would want to see what he could do, at that level. Maybe ironically, I wonder if the FBI stuff keeps him. Because one thing about Bill is we talked about Ned, but Ned is a third as stubborn as Bill Self. And I think that he doesn't want to, he knows that if he goes to the NBA right now or after this season, a lot of people are going to see that as soft. And if there's one thing Bill Self doesn't like, it's soft. Ironically, I wonder if the FBI will keep him a little bit longer, keep him in Kansas a little bit longer. A new one, I believe that when are the leases up? Truman Sports Complex?
2031.
So I can't use it
No,
this decade.
but wheels will be in motion.
Yes, we will know that the Royals will be playing downtown. I think that's going to happen. And part of why I think it's going to happen, I think the Chiefs want it to happen. And look, it's up to the Royals about what they do and up to taxpayers, right? But I think the Chiefs are certainly an influence, and I think that they might see some space if Kauffman Stadium is torn down where they can build a new Arrowhead and perhaps build, some sort of, we just saw it in New England, the
Patriot
Village.
Place.
sort of, a movie theater, grocery
St. Louis
store.
Cardinals
whatever.
have that too, right? The Ballpark
Ballpark Village.
Yeah.
It's less surrounded, right, because it's all in downtown.
Yeah.
But this would speak to something Blair has brought up to me since the day I got here. Really, we got talking about the oddity of the lack of development around
It's crazy.
Truman Sports Complex versus what's out at the Legends, and it's crazy. It is crazy.
Okay, I got nothing to add to that. Those are some good predictions. I like that. Anybody, you want to take a stab at who the next Kansas coach will be?
I'd like to hear who you project.
It changes. I'll tell you what, it changes from season to season. It's been Mark Turgeon before. It's Tad Boyle is sort of kind of the hot name now. I also think about Jacques Vaughn as a kind of an outlier one who's been an NBA head coach, loved the university. So that's my short list.
We've seen some of that. I mean, Juwan Howard and Jerry Stackhouse, and
sure.
we've seen. Yeah,
Yep.
It's interesting.
Guys, I really enjoyed this. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Blair.
Well, that'll do it for another decade, year, month, week of SportsBeat KC presented by Big O Tires. Links to the stories about the coaches we discussed can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Thanks to Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian for sharing their thoughts today and for being frequent guests on this show. Derek Donovan produced today's episode. Appreciate it, Derek. Oh, and if you're listening on a network that allows you to rate and review, please do that. It helps. Hey, it's New Year's Eve, and be safe if you're out celebrating tonight. And here's to a happy 2020 for everyone.